Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thinking About DFS. Davis Mattek and Jakob Sanderson here with you. We are going to record this every week, Thursday morning at an ungodly hour for Jakob, who lives in not God's time zone, the opposite of God's time zone, out in Pacific time. So everything happens for him, far before it happens to the rest of us at a much more reasonable time zone for me. Jakob, this first week, we're going to post it as a recording. We're going to see how it does. If it does poorly as a video, we are going to do it as a live stream going forward. If it does well as a video, it is going to remain a video moving forward. Week one, honestly, a great week one slate. Sometimes week one can come in kind of like a damp squib where it's like, well, all the prime. So the Chiefs are never on. The Bills are normally not on the primetime slate. But we have multiple marquee offenses. We have the Bengals, we have the Texans, we have your Colts, we have Caleb Williams, we have the Dolphins, we have the Bills. Like, this is and on, if you are playing on FanDuel, you also get the Rams Lions game, which is what a nice inclusion that Rams Lions game is on FanDuel. This is going to be a DraftKings focused show. However, if you are playing on FanDuel this year, Jakob, they added the bonuses. So they added in 300-yard bonus, 100-yard bonus. Now, it is still half PPR, so the scores are not going to one-to-one line up. But more than years past, there's going to be more correlation between the sites. Jakob, it's week one. How are you feeling, buddy?
Doing great, man. Maybe it's just because no offense is hurt yet that we can have 4 awesome primetime games and still have, I would say, like 3 at least really good offenses going against each other in the regular games. But this is fantastic. Literally feels like Christmas morning. Like, I woke up today at way too early. And then immediately starting loading up the ownership projections, taking a look through the DFS stuff. And I'm just pumped. I mean, this is going to be the greatest. I'm going to be probably like one of the worst employees possible today. I'm going to be going into work, and all I'm going to be doing is just thinking about watching football all night. It's going to be great, man. I imagine it must be even better as a Chiefs fan. Like, you guys just get to kick off the year every year. Like, this is the first of 2 Arrowhead Invitationals, one at the start and one at the end of every year of your season.
Yeah, I mean, I would say last year, not the greatest start. Someone posted this in my Discord this morning, but the three leaders in routes at wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs in that opening game.
I can guess that one, I think.
It's not even it's worse than you think, because it wasn't even
Sky,
Tony.
I think, had like 64%. Tony did not run a lot of routes. Justin Watson and MVS. It was probably Sky, Justin Watson, and MVS.
Richie James more routes than Justin Watson in game one.
Oh, wow.
Richie James, the Richie James, who I famously probably drafted about 27 times last offseason.
I forgot he was on the Chiefs. I forgot he was a part of the proceedings.
He was part of the proceedings. All right, so this is a game-by-game NFL DFS preview. So we begin with the Carolina Panthers against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints have a team total of 23. The Carolina Panthers have a team total of 19. Kamara is right now very low. Keep in mind, we're doing this on Thursday. His projected ownership is right about 5% on RotoGrinders. I think that is going to really sneak up, because my guess is that despite the fact that he's more expensive than Rachaad White, Ken Walker, Hubbard, and Zamir White, it's week one. The slappies know what, like, Kamara's not injured yet. He's not suspended. This is the time to be rostering Alvin Kamara. I think Kamara is the best play from this game. I'm hesitant on $5,300 Hubbard. I think for example, I think I probably would prefer Javonte straight up over him.
I definitely prefer Jerome Ford straight up to him for 200 more. I mean, like, prior to looking at any of the DraftKings ownership or pricing, whatever, I'm writing the Hitchhiker's Guide column, and for week one, like, I'm just taking all of these sort of streaming options and just ranking them. I didn't have Ford and Hubbard honestly very close. I thought Ford was just kind of clearly the better play between the two of them. So, it's always different from a managed perspective versus like the minutia of DFS projections. But I think that's mostly because, like, when I'm figuring out these start sets, like, I'm not really that concerned about who projects like 2 points better than median. I'm kind of trying to look from a ceiling perspective, and not a fun game environment to me for Chuba Hubbard to be sitting there as an underdog running back mostly used on early downs, playing against New Orleans. Like this game could have like 25 points total, right? Like this is going to be a brutal football game.
I do. So I wouldn't play Carr. I wouldn't play Young. But I do think like Juwan Johnson, Olave, Kamara, the primary Saints, I think are all. I think they're reasonable plays. I think they're sprinkle plays. I think Saints defense. We don't talk about defenses a ton, but
yeah, Saints
if
defense.
If you sort by projected ownership, I mean, one, this is going to be A-Chain is going to come down a little bit, and Rachaad White will come up a little bit. I can't get with Hubbard. Like I'm going to even guess. I haven't gotten the sim labs or anything yet, but I'm going to guess the sims actually are going to be a little bit lower on Hubbard, and they're going to be a little bit higher on these guys, on Pollard, on Jones, on even Jaleel, guys like that. That would be my guess there, but not like a jammed game. I guess
only guy here I play is Kamara, and then like I don't know, I think Deontay Johnson is good at his price, but like I don't know how you're getting 30 points to Deontay Johnson, so I don't know what the point is.
Who I was going to mention one more play. This is a vomit-inducing play, but Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas are both injured. I think literally Min, Sal, Jatavian Sanders. If those guys are out, if they're not playing, I mean, I don't see what stop, because like I think Giovanni Ricci and Steven Sullivan are not Panthers anymore. I don't really see what would stop, 85% of the routes for Jatavian Sanders. I would sprinkle him a little bit if both of those guys do not play.
Would you like to know the Panthers just signed a tight end off of their Packers practice squad to be active week 1 since they have no other tight ends? Do you know what the name of this person is?
Ben Sims?
No, it is Messiah Swinson.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Messiah Swinson's game.
Neither am I, but the Messiah will be suiting up for the Panthers this week. I agree.
So there are worse punt plays.
Good click, because and there's not a lot of good punt plays at tight end that are like below like 3,500 this week. So
Ertz is the big one this week. Okay. The Atlanta Falcons play at home to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers 19.5 point team total. Falcons at home 22.5 point team total. I guess Bijan is obviously a fantastic play. He is projected as the highest scoring running back of the slate, and not projected for like crazy ownership. I think because Rashad and JT and Kamara and ETN and these guys project so well. My concern for this game would be that the Steelers drag the Falcons offense in the mud. I wonder if there'll be a little bit of a delayed signal where the Falcons show us, okay, we actually are going to be this fun passing offense. Kirk Cousins is going to drop back a ton, but they get limited to a number of possessions in this game because the Steelers will have 9-minute drive in this game, effectively. Really, the Bijan, I think, is just a good play, just straight up. Like, he can have 25 points in a not great game here. And diamond mining guy, Kyle Pitts does look relatively attractive, honestly, to me in this game at 4,600. I will be liberally applying Kyle Pitts, I believe.
How could playing like 25% owned Kyle Pitts in week 1 when he looks underpriced work out poorly? That's never worked out poorly in like any of the last 3 years.
Well, this might save us. The fact that Kincaid is not much more expensive, Ferguson is not much more expensive, and our Lord and Savior Taysom Hill, who I suppose we should have talked about in the first game, is also, I think, going to cull some ownership in this game. That's true. This early projected ownership here.
If that 9% comes through, then I think Pitts is a fantastic play. I know I've seen a little higher under spots, so we'll see as that changes throughout the week, but that would be a treat. London also is just like really underpriced if you think about like how the order that we were drafting these receivers versus how they're priced on DraftKings. London at 6,000 is either telling you that he was very overdrafted in redraft or is very underpriced on DraftKings, or maybe a combination of the two.
Either of the Steelers running backs. I mean, I would say if for whatever reason, I think Jaylen Warren is like 99% to play in this game, but if he doesn't play, I could see getting to Najee. I mean, it's like
everybody's going to get Najee though.
I mean, to be honest, I think Najee is probably an okay play for what he costs anyways. I mean, running back, it's a massive slate. We don't have any buys yet or anything, so it's a massive slate. So Najee gets I'm gonna guess you're not getting any Najee if you are quote unquote running the Sims. But yeah, I think it's mostly Bijan and Pitts for me here. Not interested in any of the quarterbacks or anything.
Yeah, I agreed with that. I'll just throw out. I think it's going to be like a constant all year, but I expect like basically every year or every week this year that George Pickens is probably going to be between like 3 to 6% ownership, and he's always going to have a ceiling, and he's always going to probably not project that well, and is always probably a pretty reasonable play.
Yeah. All right. Next game. I would say this is probably the game for me that is actually the highlight of the slate, not Houston, Indianapolis, and not what's the other really? Oh, Jacksonville, Miami. I think that Arizona traveling to Buffalo. I got two hot takes on this game. The first one is that Arizona wins outright, and the second is that some of these Bills wide receivers, I don't know which one. I mean, my hunch would probably be Shakir, but Shakir, Coleman, Hollins, whomsoever is quite a good play with Josh Allen.
Yeah, big agree. I mean, some of these wide receivers in this Bills game, right? Like, it probably isn't just going to be evenly distributed all year. They've been kind of priced a little bit like that's the case, but that's more so because we just don't know how it's going to get distributed. We're going to find out that information this week, potentially. So probably between those, three main receivers, one of them probably strikes as a big value. And I don't know how much, because of the uncertainty on the Bills side in terms of who's going to be played at what spot, because the Cardinal side is pretty expensive. I don't know that this game is going to be particularly overplayed compared to some of the others. So this could be a pretty fun spot, right? Like, look at the projected ownership there on the screen.
None of the wide receivers projected for over 10 points. Shakir is going to get a little bit of ownership. He's got a tag here in lineup HQ, but I think Shakir will be a real ball knowers play. So he might be one that, if you're playing in the $50 or the $100 single entry, he probably gets to 10% ownership there instead of 5%, something like that, but not enough to make it prohibited because all of the ownership is flooding here to Kincaid and to Trey McBride. There's going to be Allen McBride teams. There's going to be Allen Kincaid teams. There's going to be Allen McBride and Kincaid teams, I think, all of which I'm for. So to go back to my hot take, it's basically this. The Bills defense is actually pretty bad. They have a bunch of injuries. They lost a bunch of guys over the offseason. Last year was the Bills all-in season, and it didn't work out. They lost a bunch of talent. The market is giving them a ton of respect and not giving any respect to my guy Jonathan Gannon and Drew Petzig and Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, fully healthy. The Cardinals were 9th in yards per play once Kyler got back last season. That was without Marvin Harrison Jr. That was with Amari DiMercato and Michael Carter as the running backs for 3 of those games. So now their backfield is Connor again, Benson, who's a pretty exciting spell back. I think Kyler and McBride, I mean, it's early, it's Thursday, but I think Kyler and McBride is what I'm leaning for my spy team as my stack with depending on what the Sims say on bringbacks or not this week. Shakir would be my bringback, but Curtis Samuel is also good if he plays.
Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on the Shakir ownership because I probably do prefer Shakir straight up just because he's been practicing more. But if we were to get 10% owned Shakir versus 1% owned Curtis Samuel, then I think pretty clearly Samuel's the play. I think it's really could go either way between those two guys. So, yeah, really like this spot for sure. Love the cheap Bills wide receivers call. And yeah, interested to see if your hot take plays out here with the Cardinals. But also say just the vibes of this game are great. If people remember the epic Bills Cardinals game, which was probably one of the craziest DFS sweat experiences ever, when I think it was Diggs catches a touchdown with 20 seconds left, and then Hopkins, of course, catches the Hail Mary right on top of him. And that was one of the late games that week. Playing a DFS Bills Cardinals stack has always been fun. So got to do it again.
And if you want to get your brain really into DFS mode, 56 degrees projected at kickoff, slight chance of rain showers, 15-mile-an-hour winds. You know what that means? I actually really do believe this. If it is kind of rainy and it's a little bit hard to pass, that means more rushing attempts for the quarterbacks. I think more scrambles. So
Nice.
that is where I'm at. All right, again, the next game, a fantastic one. The Tennessee Titans traveling to play against the Chicago Bears. The Bears. I mean, if you can figure out what to do with the Chicago Bears this week, I feel like that could be a real key to winning money, because Rome is 4,000. Caleb is, I mean, is this going to be the cheapest that Caleb will be for his entire rookie season? It's definitely possible. I mean, I guess
Entire
I can't
NFL
say
career.
entire NFL career, possibly. I mean, it's very interesting because Caleb is 59 and the wide receivers, DJ Moore is 6.5, Rome is 4, Keenan is 6.9. I mean, Keenan is going to be 2% owned, maybe 1% owned in some stuff because of the fat Keenan stuff.
He's more expensive than Moore, 3,000 more expensive than a Dunze, and routinely falls into the 7th and 8th round of late high stakes drafts. He might be 0.1% owned.
He might. I mean, yeah, he really might be, which is, I mean, it's crazy. But like Komet, you want to talk about a guy who's not going to be owned at all. Komet in the $50 red zone, you'll see there won't even be a number in front of the decimal. It'll be 0.5% or whatever. But people are very woke to a Dunze. What are your thoughts on what Waldron is going to do? Is this going to be JSN part 2, or is he going to have learned his lesson? Or is, like, I could see anything. I could see Rome runs more routes than Keenan to Rome runs less routes than Gerald Everett.
Yeah, I mean, Rome is like, he's a super fun play because it's always fun to click these underpriced rookies in week 1. Probably not a good play from the standpoint of, like, if you're thinking about how to really highly owned players falter, like one of the easiest ways is like, oh, we're just projecting way too many routes. And it's like very easy to see how Rome Odunze runs 58% of the routes in week 1. They do the 12 personnel bullshit on half the snaps, and Rome's always the one coming off the field. And I don't know, maybe they like rotate in Tyler Scott 10% of the time because Rome's a rookie or whatever bullshit coaches like to do. And he doesn't catch a long touchdown, and then he fails at 4K. So I think probably the more like adult plays is to just go up to DJ Moore, or potentially even all the way to Keenan Allen, who like absolutely nobody will be on. I also think there's some stuff on the Titans side, like, you know, in a few weeks, we're going to know either Will Levis is just total garbage, and all this was for naught, or like the high pace, quoting EPA at press conferences, high pass rate Tennessee offense is actually going to be something we want to invest in all year. This is our first chance to do it at very low prices, and seems like pretty low ownership. I could get behind playing Levis in the spot. I could certainly get behind playing any one of the Titans running backs, or Ridley or Hopkins. Like, I think all these guys are pretty interesting. Certainly if I stack the Chicago side, this is one where I'd want to bring back. I think there's a pretty wide band on the Tennessee side here.
So Pollard is I mean, surprising no one is going to be my, like, I think Pollard works really well. If, let's say you do Stroud, Reek, Dell, and Andre Yoshibas, like you just like almost have the cash lineup or whatever. Like, move Tony Pollard in over Rachaad White from the optimal cash game build, and you've already put yourself in a really weirdo part of the game tree. So the Pollard take is very simple. It's basically he regains his efficiency from 2021, 2022 before he had the tightrope procedure. And even if the coaches are telling the truth about being very diligent about splitting the work between those guys, that Pollard is efficient enough on the road in Soldier Field that he gets there. I mean, how many times has Tony Pollard in his career gotten there on 16 touches? Like, many times. So
a lot more than he got there on 28 touches last year. That's for sure. As we would
he
know.
He wasn't ready for the body blows, Jacob. He needed to lose 10 pounds.
God, we were seeing the line Bart on Pollard like every week last year, and it was just so painful. I will admit, I did my last solo 350 draft last night, and I was sitting there in the 8th round, and I was like, you know what? One time, just for the vibes. And I clicked Anthony Randall Pollard. Welcome to the team. I just I would not be able to live with myself if we got the Tony Pollard comeback season and I didn't have the chance to enjoy it somewhere. So we're back. We're back in on Tony Pollard.
I mean, look, and if you want to talk about guys who could see their prices rapidly change, if Tony Pollard gets 18 touches in this game, averages 6.2 yards per touch, and scores a 40-yard touchdown, that's a $6,800 running back on DraftKings.com, not a $5,900 one. Okay, next game, New England, Cincinnati. Best play from this game, the Cincinnati Bengals defense is an absolutely phenomenal play. They are $3,800 on DraftKings, and they are worth every penny. Worth every penny. Even if so, I suppose the very interesting thing here is Chase is going to be limited by two things. He's going to be limited by the fact that Burrow is not going to be popular, and he's going to be limited by the fact that the vibes are bad. I mean, I've seen this I've been doing the battle royales this week on Underdog, and people are like afraid to take Chase. He's like routinely going like after like the first 12 or 13 players or whatever, because, he might not play. He might hold out. He might be rusty. I mean, Jamar Chase has been catching passes from Joe Burrow for the last 6 years of his life. I think he's a really awesome play if he comes in at this ownership, if he comes in at 8%. Now, probably he won't. Probably this will flip where T is projected for about 11 right now, and Chase is projected for about 8. I think that will probably flip. However, if we sort by points per dollar here, you're gonna get a lot of Yoshi Boss. You are gonna get Yoshi Boss right now. This 7% is just not updated. Yoshi Boss will be in everyone's cash game lineup, and when players hit cash game lineups, like add 5%, 8%, whatever to their ownership, I think in general. And by the way, I think it's fine. I think Yoshi Boss is an absolute slam for 3,000 in this spot. I'm not anticipating. I mean, I think Jermaine Burton might just be a scratch. I think Jermaine Burton just might not play at all. Yeah.
He might not even be active. Yoshi Boss, good play. Probably the only Patriot that I would have any interest in if I was to go to that side would be like, honestly, even Hunter Henry is probably a little too expensive. So maybe Polk I could get there with at 3,900. I do expect him to run, I mean, probably 60-70% of the routes in this game down at 3,900. And then the Bengals running back strike me as a pretty interesting play here. I mean, they're massive favorites. I think that people might not be super into them because there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of how the roles are going to be distributed. But, you just pick one and you assume that that's what it's going to be. I think Moss is probably the slightly better week one start, both just because I think he's kind of more like the week one quote unquote starter.
I mean, they're both good plays.
Works in his favor, but Brown at 5,000 is very playable. Moss 5,800, both cheap options and guys that I'd want to be getting into my lineup. I think you can put one in half your lineups and you'll probably come out ahead.
I think I'll probably be bag defending. Actually, no, what's the reverse? I'll be bag hedging by playing Moss a little bit this week. I'll be bag hedging a little. I mean, I think this just even if the ADPs from Best Ball end up being correct, this is just much more of a Moss script where they're not passing a ton. They don't have a ton of long third downs. They just are not needing to involve the running backs as much in the passing game. They'll need body blows, and Moss is the bot. Although I suppose you could go the other way if I was wanting to bag defend, I'd say, well, the stakes are going to be really low in this game. They're not going to have to worry about Joe Burrow pass protection. So why not just let Chase Brown run free in the second half? Because he's more likely to be the chunk play guy. I think at sub 3% ownership, they're probably both fine. They're probably outside the top 15 plays at running back just because of the uncertainty. If you do sim-based lineups, you're not going to get hardly any of these guys, I don't think. So, it depends on how you want to play the game. All right, the game of the week, the Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. We have a bunch of ownership coming in this game. Taylor, Dell, Pittman, Nico, Diggs, Mixon, all projected to be in there to some degree. Richardson, I think, will probably end up being the cash game quarterback, which is pretty interesting at 60. I mean, it'll be either him or Jaden Daniels. So again, if guys are hitting like true optimal builds, like you just go to the solver and you run for most points in a lineup, that's going to add more. I actually, Jacob, I'm not that into playing Richardson here. I prefer to play the other side. But if I was going to do it, I would go full Galaxy Brain, full Best Ball Bro, and I would pass up on Pittman Jr. and I would play AD Mitchell with him.
Yeah, they're going to be seems like no Josh Downs this week. I think the projections have that for the most part baked in. So the expectation is going to be, Pittman, Pierce, Mitchell. They played the third most 11 personnel last year in the league, despite having 80 million tight ends on the roster. It's kind of just a misnomer that they just rotate a bunch of tight ends through for one spot. So Mitchell's probably going to be playing in the slot this week. I think he is a fantastic play. And I think that even Alec Pierce at 4K, for what it's worth, he's had an absolutely fantastic camp and is going to be running deep routes. I think that he's also in play as a punt wide receiver. So either of the two cheap Colts, if you want to play them with Richardson. But I agree. The Stroud side is the way to play this game. People are familiar from last year that I'm not a very loyal Colts fan when it comes to DFS. And in fact, I'm quite the opposite. Juju Brents, Jalen Jones, and Nick Cross are 3 of the 5 starting secondary members, all of whom are deeply, deeply sub-replacement level NFL football players. So you should be targeting the Colts secondary all year long. Colts are kind of an interesting defense because they actually do have a really good front 7. I expected them to probably be top 5, maybe top 10 in sack rate this year. But if a team is able to hold up to that pressure, there's nothing in the back end. And Nico Collins last year was great all the time, but was especially great against teams who played predominantly cover 1 and cover 3. Gus Bradley, truly a dinosaur, has not learned cover 2 yet in his many years defensive coordinator. He is still rolling out the Legion of Boom era cover 3 that has largely disappeared from the NFL outside of him. And he's going to roll it out on every single play. And Nico Collins is just going to constantly feast. So if you're looking at what Texans wide receiver to play, to me, you have potential route concerns with Tank Dell. You have probably Stephon Diggs running almost all of his routes against Kenny Moore. And then you have Nico Collins just running freely against a couple of rookies with about 15 combined career NFL or second-year players with about 15 combined NFL career starts. I'm going to play Nico Collins in like probably almost every single lineup that I make this week. And a lot of those will be with Stroud and probably double stacked.
All right, I'm going to make you pick right now. Who scores more points, Tank Dell or Stephon Diggs? You can only have one. I'm letting you build one lineup for your life. You can only do one of the two.
For this week, it's Dell. I think Diggs is probably in the worst matchup spot just with how the Colts line up defensively. He's the only player that has to go up against a competent defensive back. So I'm going Collins and Dell.
Collins and Dell. All right. I mean, that is my lean as well. I will not be surprised right now. So Nico Collins is $7,000 on DraftKings this week. I am not going to be surprised at all if it settles at real peak Cincinnati Bengals ass pricing where Chase is Nico. He's 8,500. T is Dell and Dell is 7,200 and Diggs is like Boyd plus and he's 6,100 every week or so, like something equivalent to that.
I think there's going to be Diggs games. I still like Diggs over Dell all season long, but just the Colts are a weird and bad pass defense. So I don't know. I think just with how it sets up this week, I think there's going to be a lot of weeks where Diggs has a really good matchup in the slot and you're going to want to target him repeatedly. I just think for this week, you want to go to the outside receivers and especially Collins. Nico Collins last year, 2 games against the Colts, 7, 146, 1, 9, 195, 1. He enjoys playing against Gus Bradley's boys.
For sure. Yeah, Nico is the best play of the week. Nico, in fact, I haven't made the thumbnail for this yet, but Nico is gonna be the thumbnail. All right. The second best game of the week, we have got one Mr. Tyreek Hill, who is the highest owned player of the slate. The Jacksonville Jaguars at the Miami Dolphins, 22.5 point team total, 26.5 team total. Reek, Waddle, I mean, this is, you want to talk about say the line, Bart. Jalen Waddle actually provides excellent leverage on Tyreek Hill. We've got
Whoa,
Kirk.
I've seen so much Pete Overzet doing Davis Mattek impressions. That was the first time I've seen Davis Mattek do a Pete Overzet character impression. That was really good.
Davis doing best ball intelligentsia guy.
That was Cardigan Pete, yeah.
That was Cardigan Pete. Kirk, Thomas, Waddle, Malik Washington. If I was doing 150, which I will not be doing, but if I was doing 150, I would boost Malik Washington's projection to like 8 points or something into a lineups, I think is what I would do. I mean, we even have Evan Ingram, who is looking like the stone chalk. Jonnu, I've seen worse plays than Jonnu Smith. And of course, ETN, A-Chain, and Mostert. I mean, this pains me as a true slappy. But Mostert at 1/4 of the ownership of A-Chain. I mean, look, I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone who spent all offseason drafting A-Chain instead of Mostert. But if this is really what the numbers are on Sunday morning, and again, we're recording this on Thursday, there definitely is going to be a little bit of change. I mean, come on. A-Chain remains a fantastic play, and I will be jamming the shit out of him. And if I am in the spy or the red zone or whatever, I will play A-Chain over Mostert. But Mostert is like the definition of elite leverage play.
Yeah, definitely agree on that, which is kind of unfortunate, but that's kind of what week 1 DFS is all about for me, is like it is bag hedging all over the board, right? It's like I'm looking over the board. I'm looking at Rachaad White. I'm looking at Alvin Kamara. I'm like, maybe I play Zach Moss over Chase Brown. Maybe I play Raheem Mostert over Devon Achane. That's what week 1 DFS is for. So I agree on Raheem Mostert. Brian Thomas, I'm going to play a rookie receiver. I think he's my favorite one this week, or at least outside of the like top 2 elite guys. Probably the one receiver.
Well, he's the least likely to lose snaps to a rando, because who would the rando be? Parker Washington, Brenton Strange?
Right. Of all the rookie receivers on this slate, like he's the one that I'm most confident in locking in for 80% plus routes, maybe even 90% plus routes. Comes in 4,600, plays in a fantastic game environment. I think he's a really good play. I think that the whole Jacksonville side of this is probably going to be a little bit on the under-owned side of the spectrum. I would be very in on Thomas, though, in particular.
What about playing Ingram as like a total one-off? Like I have my Houston, Indianapolis game stack. I mean, I guess it's him versus Kincaid versus McBride as a one-off.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know if I can really trick my brain into playing Evan Ingram for $1,000 more than Kyle Pitts, but maybe I'll get there by Sunday morning.
So this is you want to talk about inside football. So I just did a take cast yesterday with a wide receiver coach named Drew Lieberman, who's like a private personal trainer. He's done work with Ayuk, with Andre Yoshibats, with Chase Brown, Darius Slayton, and his like star client of all time was Evan Ingram. Kind of has me jazzed up. He worked with Evan in between the Giants and the Jaguars tenure, and he was like, dude, we totally revamped his game. We like got rid of the drops. We really solved it. Wow. So shout out to him. I'm resolving something right now. I'm not going to be the Jalen Waddle slappy. I'm just going to be playing Tyreek Hill until he kind of gives me a reason not to. It's like, I'm going to go into my lineups and I'm going to be like, you know what? Maybe just play the guy who literally projects for 25 points instead of Jalen Waddle, who like is going to hurt his shoulder on the second drive and only run 72% of the routes.
Good for you. I'll probably be playing some Jalen Waddle this week. I mean, I'll play Jalen Waddle. I'll play Tyreek Hill too, but I'm going to play Jalen Waddle every single week. I also have like Jalen Waddle on 25% of my best ball teams, half my high stake teams. Like I please, Jalen, no more in-game injuries this year. Just play the entire game, start to finish to middle. Like just no more. Oh, I'm going to the sideline like with a shin injury. Oh, I'm back in the game. Oh, now I hurt my shoulder. None of this is here. None.
Look, if he doesn't get injured 7 times this year, he'll probably end up getting outscored by Cooper Kupp. So you've got that going for you. All right. The next game is fascinating because we have basically 2 of the 5 best talented wide receivers in the NFL the Minnesota Vikings traveling to play at the New York Giants. We've got Aaron Jones ranking at actually Jones is actually probably my favorite play in this game, truthfully, where it just sets up perfectly for him to get 19 rushes. He'll have one vintage. Well, I don't know if it'll be on a wheel route. I don't know if it'll be on a screen, but he will have one 40-yard scamper in the passing game for sure. You want to talk about generational pricing? I mean, is this going to be? This might actually be the cheapest neighbors to be for the lowest 5.9. I mean, I honestly, I don't even care about the fact that I'm like kind of out on neighbors for like not out on neighbors for best ball or redraft or whatever. I didn't take him a ton, but 5,900 for him. I mean, he's a jam. He's a jam. And Jefferson,
it's going to be like 2035 before he's ever sub 6K again on DraftKings.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like everything you read about the Giants is, well, like half the play sheet. I should go find this quote, but basically Thorman just tweeted it if you're really interested in it.
I saw
Thorman and it's basically like Dable's got the first half, he's got the front of his play sheet, that's the whole offense, and then he flips it around, and the back half of the play sheet is all Malik Neighbors plays. So yeah, I don't care about this projected ownership. And this Jefferson projected ownership, if I was a betting man, I would bet that gets down to the single digits by Sunday morning. But the Giants suck. The Giants defense sucks. This is like a 7-10 ass team at their absolute ceiling. And again, I mean, Jefferson could totally outscore Tyreek Hill in fantasy points this season. And it's just the market is really baking in this Sam Darnold risk right now. But is Sam Darnold, I mean, this is the point we've been making all offseason, Jacob, but is he really any different than Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall, Josh Dobbs? I'm thinking no.
Yeah, this was a constant last year with Jefferson where it seemed like Hill and Lamb were more frequently in these like elite game environments. And Jefferson was scoring, roughly similar to them when he was healthy last year, and would usually come in a lot less owned because he'd be in sort of a more mid game like this against the Giants. And certainly that has me very excited to play Jefferson this week. I think he is going to be one of the better plays you can make. Anytime you can bet on the best wide receiver in football at low relative ownership versus his compatriots, I think it's a good chance to get a play in there with him. And then I don't know any of these cheap. I know we're getting right into your ADP chasing wheelhouse here, but if you had to pick a cheap Giants wide receiver, or are you just going all the way to neighbors in every lineup?
I mean, I just think in the context of this slate, there are so many games, there are so many plays. I think you just play Yoshi Boss. Like, do you really need to play a $4,100 Wandale when you could just play Roma Dunze? Even at Rome's ownership. I mean, that's like the number one thing we've learned from the Sims is that people tend to get too fancy. So yeah, I'm 100. I think there's just no reason. I mean, Singletary, I guess Singletary could be your classic. No one plays him, and he ends up having the third most touches on the slate, and the Vikings aren't able to pull away, and he gets 86 rushing yards, 5 receptions for 18 yards, and scores 2 touchdowns. Like it's in the range. I'm not playing it, but it's definitely in the range. Teams near and dear to you and I's heart for very different reasons. The next game, getting into the afternoon window, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers. Zamir White absolutely popping, which is crazy for Zamir White to be popping on a half PPR or a full PPR, but he is. I'm probably leaving him more for like battle royale type stuff, or would play maybe a little bit on FanDuel. Do you have the stones to play any of the Chargers running backs? Because what do you win when you win? If you win J.K. Dobbins in the role that he was in week 1 with the Baltimore Ravens last season, you win probably the best play of the slate, $4,900 J.K. Dobbins. I don't think I have the stones though.
I am a slappy, and I will be doing it. I'm legitimately excited to play J.K. Dobbins this week, 4,900. He's easily the one guy on this team, if you were going to play anyone, where you look up after the week and go, wow, like I just played a $6,500 player for $4,900, and he wasn't even that highly owned. He also could be playing 22% of the snaps But I think that there's some upside there. This is by far the team. Like, in the Hitchhiker's column each week, I kind of go through like, here's what I expect the snap distribution to be, and like, here's what kind of situations I expect to play. The Chargers were the most like, I don't know, man. it's like Gus is probably gonna have some carries, and he's probably gonna handle some goal line work. And then after that, I don't know. Like Dobbins can handle all of the rest. He can play all of passing downs. They could use Hassan Haskins or Vidal on passing downs for all I know. I don't even know which 3 running backs are going to be active exactly.
I would not be surprised if Haskins was active over Vidal, really at all.
Neither would I. Like so I have no clue what to expect from the Chargers running back rotation in this game, or like how they're going to project. And I know for a fact that like even in all of his infinite wisdom, the Mike Leone's, the Cardis, the whoever's putting these projections together on the various sites, like they don't know either. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the LA Chargers. So I do
Harbaugh and Roman might not know right now. They might not know right now. In fact, they probably don't. In fact, they probably don't. I'll toss out a pretty good, relatively contrarian stack here. I will probably make this one of my teams, Herbert with Ladd and Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is $7,600. This is still Devontae Adams. Same guy, been no change in how good he's played. All of his stuff last year, his separation, his yards per target, all of it. His yards per target went down a little bit. I think if you do Herbert, Ladd, Adams, you can get as weird, or you can get as chalky as you want with the. You can play Evan Ingram, you can play Tyreek Hill, you can play Yoshi Voss, you can play Rashad White, you can play stone chalk around that team. That feels like a pretty good team to me. Or you could even do Palmer instead of Ladd if you wanted.
Yeah, I'll probably do it with Palmer for week 1. I mean, he'll be more owned than Ladd will, but like probably not by that much. And no one's playing Herbert.
4% maybe.
And I don't think that many people are playing Raiders pass catchers. This is going to be one of my favorite spots to play, where we get a chance here. I don't think anyone's really going to be on any Raider that isn't Zamir. So if you want to play Adams, or you want to play,
is projected for over Bowers at 6%, and even that might be rich. No one in this whole game is really projected to be owned right now.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, this is kind of a fun spot. Like, there's just a lot of uncertainty on the Chargers, and like what's currently baked into their projected ownership and pricing seems to be both that they're going to not be fun and they're going to run the ball all the time, and also they're going to be like a 3-way running back split. And it's like, maybe that's not true, or maybe that's at least not true in week 1. Maybe they pass a little bit more than we think. Maybe their run game is a little bit more consolidated than we think. So I think either way you could play that. You could either go and pick a Chargers running back. I think the one worth making the bet on in week 1 is Dobbins, just because he's the one that has more receiving upside than Gus if the role hits. And then, yeah, I'm into Herbert with either Ladd or with Palmer. You could do a punt tight end if you wanted to with that. I don't think you need to. And I'm going to play probably both Bowers and Adams as well in lineups from the Raiders side.
Together? I would not do them together. No. I don't think.
Not together. Yeah. I just mean like in my portfolio, I'll have Bowers lineups and Adams lineups.
Yeah, I mean, if I make 10 teams, it's like, again, I mean, similar to the neighbors thing. Bowers is in prime of a situation to get 10 targets a week as neighbors is, but he definitely could score. This could be the cheapest that he ever is, basically.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Kind of getting out of the fun games now. We've got Denver, Seattle. Denver with a very low team total. Oh, well, that's not fair. I mean, Ken Walker is an absolute jam. Ken Walker probably... I probably like Ken Walker straight up over Rashad White. That could be misguided. I could definitely see that being misguided. I like
the pencil pushers doing the Sims. They won't agree with that.
They will not agree with that. No, the pencil pushers will not agree with that. JSN actually looks like a jam. Jaleel looks okay. I worry about Jaleel's absolute ceiling for winning one of these contests. Like, he probably is like a really good play to get an under-owned 14 points. He's probably, I don't know, can Jaleel ever get 20 in a game on DraftKings? He'd have to catch like 8 passes.
He's going to need to house a screen.
And even then he might not. The tight ends, I mean, if you were really wanting to throw a dart, Fant or Dulcich. I mean, Dulcich 3K.
I've been taking a look at Dulcich.
So I think the issue with Dulcich is he is going to be, when you look at when you load up your data suite of choice, your PFF or your fantasy points or whatever, and you sort by targets per route run, you're going to be like, is Greg Dulcich the greatest wide receiver or greatest pass catching tight end of all time? His targets per route run is going to be like 33%, but it's going to be on about 13 routes per game. Because I think Kroll and Troutman are going to be the first and second down tight ends, and Dulcich will only come in on long down and distance, and maybe not even the red zone because he's not a particularly good blocker, but he still might see 6 targets. He might see 6 targets on 12 routes.
I think there's upside for him to be in like a Jared Cook role. Like Cook used to run about like 60% of the routes with the Saints and always had really good per route stuff in that role. I think that's kind of what you're dreaming of for Dulcich. We'll see if that manifests week 1 or not, but that's like the most plausible upside I can envision for him as a role. Agreed with everything you said about Seattle. Like JSN is, I think, one of the best plays on the slate. Lockett is dealing with a patella tendon injury. DK Metcalf is dealing with one of the best "Aren't you worried" in the NFL. Aren't you worried?
Oh, Surtain, yeah,
Pat Surtain the second. So that leaves JSN as the guy at $4,900. I'm not worried. We'll be playing him for sure. Obviously, Walker is a fantastic play, and I think a lot of people know it. In on Walker, in on Metcalf. And on Javonte too, I would say. Like I get the Jaleel appeal, but probably week 1 would be the week most likely for this to be just a 2-person committee, right? Like I'm not expecting to see a lot of Audric Estime out there this week. I think his role might grow over time. I think
you could get rug pulled really hard though. You could get, it's like Audric Estime gets 2 carries and both of them come from the 3-yard line. That's definitely in play. I mean, Jaleel literally did that to Javonte last year. Jaleel had like 13 snaps for the first month of the season, and 2 of them were for touchdowns.
That's correct. I don't know. I'm still intrigued to see what the week 1 Javonte Williams role is. I think it could be pretty good. I think all these Denver running backs we've talked about all year are going to have like pretty ridiculous targets per route run stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely going to play some Javonte. Maybe I'll play Jaleel. I don't know. Kind of hard for me to get there with a satellite back, but perhaps. And I will definitely play Walker and JSN. And I could lie and say that I'm good enough to not play Greg Dulcich, but I will be playing one Greg Dulcich lineup because I am the slappy.
I mean, it's not any worse than playing Zach Ertz, honestly. I don't think so.
No, it definitely is. Like Zach Ertz is going to play like 81% of the routes this week, and Greg Dulcich is going to run like 31%. But guess which one I'm going to play?
Fair. That's unironic. That's fair. Okay. The strangest play of the slate is that the Cowboys have a 19-point team total on the road to Cleveland. CeeDee Lamb projected for less than 10% ownership. Cardi has him for 21.67 DraftKings points. That is actually a spot where I think the Sims will be in. If the Sims will look at this and say, Tyreek Hill is projected for more points, but at about 3 times the ownership, why would we not play one Mr. Sedarian Lamb? To which I say, I'm with you. I'm with you, Sims. Yeah. I think if this holds, if we get to Sunday morning and Tyreek is at, 15 to 20% ownership and CD holds at single digits, I think CD is probably the best play. He might supersede Nico Collins as the best play of the slate.
Yeah, very in on Sedarian at this projected ownership. I mean, anytime you can get CeeDee Lamb at sub 10, I think that you've got to do it. Also very in on Jerome Ford. I'm gonna be going back and forth between some of these like kind of mid 5K running backs, but
he's a better play than Chuba Hubbard. I'll say Jerome Ford is better than Chuba Hubbard.
Clearly to me. Clearly he is. Yeah, if you're gonna play one of these guys, I think it's Ford. Dallas, I know that the team totals in this game are pretty gross, but Dallas was really bad against the run late last year. And just, I don't know, like that they did a lot to change their defensive personnel. It seems like they mostly just kind of hit fast forward. It's like one of those teams where maybe you accidentally hit sim off season when you're playing 2K and you go, oh shoot, like now I just wasted a chance to make some free agent signings, some draft picks. That's kind of what the Dallas Cowboys did, I think, this off season is they just simmed it. So I expect, pretty good spot for. I mean, people I think like will be surprised to learn when they pull up their CBS Sports app that the Cleveland Browns are favored in this game. I don't think that's like what people's perception of
No,
this game
that
will
would not be anyone's perception. Yeah.
Right. So I think that kind of makes Ford like a particularly good trust the process play here. Him and Lamb. I don't know. Is there anyone else other than Ford and Lamb that you're really looking at this game?
I might slap it up with a Dowdle or two. I mean,
that's what I wanted to know.
I've got the Dowdle. I've got the Dowdle hires. It's like his hires on Underdog opened at like 26.5 rushing yards and I think 7.5 receiving yards, like just his last lines. So I did hit those hires. I mean, Dowdle is like the 97th best play on this slate. So I might be lying a little bit saying I would get there. Also, average Amari at 6.4. I mean, he could actually probably be the guy that you want in a revenge game. Legitimate revenge too. The same offseason that Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk got paid the fucking GDP of Antigua, and the Cowboys were like, you can have Amari Cooper for a 5th round pick. Remains one of, like, the Cowboys are terrible at reading the market. That remains one of their worst reading of the markets of all time. Just being like, you can have Amari Cooper for a conditional fucking 5th rounder. Terrible.
It was truly insane thing that happened. It's like everything that we know from the last few years, like wide receivers are so valuable. Wide receivers are so valuable. Wide receivers are getting overpaid. It's like, oh, would you like a borderline Pro Bowl wide receiver for nothing? Like, and it's like, and I remember at the time, you're like, oh, his contract. And then you like see the contract get signed and immediately like, actually, that's a value. Like, you could have Amari Cooper for $20 million a year. Like, that sounds great. Like, I'd love to have Amari Cooper for $20 million a year. Truly crazy. Yeah, he's in play.
Yeah. Okay. The final game, we've been mentioning Rachaad White this entire time. We get to the Washington Commanders against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Buccaneers favored by 3, team total of 23.7. Rachaad White, what do you make of it? What do you make of the whole deal?
I mean, he projects great. He just does. And he's probably going to score a lot of points. I've been out on Rachaad White all draft season. I think that his role is a little bit fragile because I think his talent is lacking. But if you're going to play Rachaad White, it's going to be week 1. Like I already know what's going to happen. Like Rachaad White's going to have like 22 points. He's going to play 78% of the snaps. And a bunch of people on Twitter are going to be like, you moron, slappy virgin nerds that were talking about Bucky Irving. Like, this is Rachaad White's back. Like, that's what's happening. The moral arc of history is long, but in this moment, it still bends towards Rachaad White. The play though that you just got to make. I mean, can we have the discussion of the tallest, biggest wide receiver in the NFL going up against the littlest, smallest corner in the NFL? That's the play in this game. Mike Evans. You got to go big man against little Emmanuel Forbes.
My God, he is so small. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, he is incredibly small. Like I'm concerned.
He's gonna have a full foot on Emmanuel Forbes. Like, there's gonna be a play where Baker Mayfield is rolling out and he's gonna see Mike Evans just kind of like standing there, like just like this, and Emmanuel Forbes is gonna be like hopping up like a little kid trying to guard their dad.
Mike Evans is just gonna push him over.
And Evans is gonna be like, yeah, I got the ball. Like 7% ownership with Rachaad White coming in is probably one of the most plays in the slate. Are you kidding me? Absolute jam, Mike Evans. And I would even play him with Baker potentially. The Washington Commanders secondary is trash, but Mike Evans, if you want to get off of the Nico train for any reason whatsoever, or you maybe want to play them both together and defer the top 3 mega price guys, and then you want to get your leverage on Rachaad White, any of the above, just extremely in on Mike Evans in this matchup.
Are you extremely in on Jaden Daniels in this matchup? I don't know enough about the Buccaneers to make sense of it, but if he, I mean, fine. Yeah, I do prefer Richardson. Like, for cash, for this stuff, it's like find the 600. I think I'm team Richardson over Daniels here. I just know Richardson.
I think Jaden Daniels is kind of a cash game ass play, because if you're playing him in a tournament, the issue is like the only person anyone is going to feel comfortable playing him with is McLaurin. So you're just going to, like, whatever his ownership is,
Well, never say never. I mean, Zach Ertz with the 6.6.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, but we do what Cliff is actually going to do, which is you add Ertz and Sinnett's projection together because Sinnett is not going to play. Then you get to a very cromulent value play.
For sure. Yeah, so you have to get weird. You have to either play like De'Ami Brown or you have to play Zach Ertz.
I'm not
something.
doing that.
I just think like the issue that you're going to run into with the Daniels lineups is you're gonna make your Daniels lineup with a McLaurin skinny stack and a Rachaad White bring back, and then it's like not only are you dealing with ownership on each of those pieces, but you're dealing with like 10% of the lineups just have exactly that, and you're just in this train with all your other friends with your Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Rachaad White lineup. So if you're gonna play Jaden Daniels, just don't do that. That would be my one take.
I mean, just play Jaden Daniels naked, or play him with Mike Evans, or play him with Jalen McMillan, or play him with Chris Godwin. Honestly,
yeah.
All right, let's build a team, man. Let's build a team. I will give you the first selection. You may have whoever you want.
All right. Played in the most fun game on the slate. My favorite player. Time to tell the pencil pushers to shove it. Alpha play, Jonathan Taylor.
Wow. That was not what I was expecting. I was not expecting you to go that direction. Okay. I will just take the free square. I'm going to take Yoshi Boss. I feel pretty good about Yoshi Boss getting 5 targets this week in a total cupcake spot for the Cincinnati Bengals. And that gives us some freedom to move about the cabin.
All right. I know that the other side of the game that I think we want to play is going to be expensive, and I want to leave you some freedom to navigate that. You put in one cheap wide receiver. I'm going to put in one other reasonably cheap wide receiver. Give me Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, JSN is the one where when we get some clarity about his role, he could end up, like, if he runs more routes than Lockett or ends up getting 8 targets in this game, JSN is a DraftKings ass wide receiver, a 6 for 60 ass wide receiver. All right, well, let's see where we get salary wise if we do Stroud and Nico Collins, who on the other side of that game, that gives us $4,950 remaining per slot, not including a defense and special teams.
All right. Let's see what we have room for here. So let's go and see if we can make this work or not. But let's see. Let's all right. I'll do the slappy play here. Let's give you some room to work with. We got JSN coming on the other side of it. Give me Greg Dulcich here in the tight end slot.
Wow, great. You know what? Week 1, tight end. It's weird. I really don't hate it. I really don't. I really don't at all. And that gives us, I mean, not only does that give us salary freedom, that also gives us some projected ownership freedom. We've got relatively chalky JSN, relatively chalky Yoshi. Stroud, not projected that chalky, although this combo will be quite owned.
You know what's a lie is 6% Nico Collins. Like that's just not going to be the case.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. I would play but double that. But like you were going to log in on Sunday morning, and if you think you're going to be looking at 6% Nico Collins in your, especially a small field contest, I think that you'll be disabused of that notion.
Now Raheem Mostert at 4.3.7%. That is not a lie. That is much more. That hews much closer to the truth. And if you're not playing Tyreek, you should probably be playing another Dolphin. That's some professional advice for you there. We now have $10,400 left, so we can kind of select whoever we want if we take a cheaper defense. Cheap defense. Commies look pretty good. Panthers look all right. Broncos look all. Jaguars. I don't know. What Cardinals against Josh? Do you have a lean on any of these defenses?
Well, what do you think? We have 10-4 left. So 10-4, I would like to find anyone that is $3,100 or less.
31. Browns are probably the best one.
Let's do the Cleveland.
Yeah, Browns are actually probably very good. So we have.
If you'll scroll over to $7,300. That is exactly enough for one very large man going against one very small cornerback.
All right, so CJ Stroud with Nico with a JT bring back, Raheem Mostert, Yoshibas, JSN, Dulcich, Mike Evans in the flex, and Browns defense. This, we've definitely crafted worse. Let me say, we have definitely crafted worse.
And we'll craft worse in the future.
Correct. All right, there we go. Stroud, Taylor, Mostert, Yoshibas, JSN, Nico, Dulcich, Evans, Browns for the audio listeners. Jacob, it's just over an hour on the show. Let's wrap it up. Flag plants from me. Nico Collins as the best Texans wide receiver. And Chuba Hubbard as bad chalk. I will not be playing Chuba Hubbard in my single entry or 3 max stuff. Feels easy, but it's week 1, so you got to take the fastball. Don't let the fastball fly by, because kind of whatever you think people will be doing, they'll be overdoing it or underdoing it. Like chalk will get over-owned a little bit, and these marginal 8%, 9% owned spots will actually be a little bit less owned. So there are my flag plans for week 1.
Yeah, I mean, clearly taking easy ones. Those were exactly the two that I was planning to come in and talk about when I woke up this morning. But that's all right. I will use my backup one of large man against small man, flag planting Mike Evans in half of my lineups this week. I don't know if there's another play that I absolutely hate. It's going to be popularly played outside of Chuba Hubbard, but I guess it would be the triad of Jaden Daniels with McLaurin and White. That would be the other very bad chalk combo. I think it's totally fine to play Daniels, but you're definitely going to want to play him, I think, with Evans or with a non-Terry McLaurin commander stack, or just naked. All
right, beautiful. Tell the people thinking what they can get in season, and then we will get out of here.
Yeah, thinking in-season content. We're going to have Hitchhiker's Guide every week, which is my sort of in-season dynasty and redraft melded running back column. And then I'll probably have different sort of additional columns more or less every second week that will probably be mostly dynasty focused, but kind of whatever sort of theory-based stuff is in the air at the given time over the course of the season. I'll be on, of course, Dynasty Points every week on Tuesday nights on Fantasy Points. And yeah, that's going to be the main deal with thinking for in-season stuff. Of course, we'll have up-to-date Dynasty rankings, annotated running back tiers, and all that good stuff to go with it.
All right, beautiful. Guys, we're going to get out of here. Check out patreon.com/DavisMattek for a little bit more. If you want to be in the Discord talking week 1 NFL DFS, consider becoming a member of the channel, and we'll be back with you next week.